It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this. I'm Jeff Grubb. I write for GamesBeat.com. I do Grub Snacks on Giant Bomb. I do a whole bunch of other stuff. I run the Game Mess. I am reviewing Halo Infinite. I just posted my review on GamesBeat if you want to go read it. I thought I would do a quick video take on it as well because I've been playing a lot of it, and let's talk to my YouTube audience as well here. On GamesBeat, I gave it 5 stars. And the big reason behind that is because overall it is a great game. That score, the review, it applies to both the multiplayer and the single player campaign. I think as an entire package, it is undeniably one of the better games of 2021. It is one of the best Xbox Game Studios releases in a long time, even compared to some of the other Game of the Year contenders that Xbox Game Studios has released this year in Deathloop, Psychonauts 2, Forza Horizon 5. Even going against games like that, this is one of the best things Xbox has launched in a very long time. And the multiplayers are pretty well understood at this point, so I'll focus on the campaign. I'll just say that the thing that 343 is doing on both sides is leaning into the strengths of Halo. They are maintaining the fundamentals of Halo. They're keeping that foundation the same. It's very recognizable, but they lean into what makes Halo good, and then they amplify that. So on the multiplayer side, that is making sure that it's still very easy to get together with friends and all that stuff. Making sure that the maps still feel, or they're well-made maps, and that the maps still feel like something that you can learn and get good at. All that stuff. But then, you have extra equipment like the grappling shot, and other things like that expand the possibility space, which I think is one of the key things that has always made Halo. People turn to games like Halo and Battlefield for those emergent gameplay moments. I think Halo does that stuff very well. You can, and really, it's not necessarily about like, oh, you're going to stand on a ship and fly over there and have something silly happen. In Halo, what it's really about is creating this wide open space for creativity to happen. And that might mean, oh, you happen to come across an energy sword. You know where the grappling hook is. Let's go grab that. Let's combine these two things and use those things together in a synergistic way to get the most out of it and do the most damage. So now you're grapple shotting your way into an enemy, and you're taking them out with the sword really fast, and they don't know what's going to happen to them. And that grapple shot's only going to last for so long. But because you understood the map, because you understood the possibilities that could happen inside this Halo multiplayer playground and sandbox, you were able to capitalize on that, come up with good ideas, and make it work. For the campaign, 343 both sort of pulls away from, it doesn't pull away from Halo. That's not what it's doing. What it's doing is sort of widening the aperture of looking at Halo. So you have more space for the game to breathe once again. And what I mean here is it's an open world game now. This creates a lot of space. I'm like repeating this point over and over, but that's what they're doing here. It's what 343 is doing. It just expands your approach to the world, and it creates a lot of breathing room for you to spot something, understand what it means, and then go after it. So like an example of that is in Halo Infinite on the Zeta Halo. Once you get out into the open world space, you will spot something on the horizon. You'll kind of say, hey, that is something of interest to me, or you'll see it on the map and say, I want to go there. And as you get closer to it, you'll start to understand like what it's going to take to take it on. Like you'll see high value targets, or you'll see powerful bosses, or you'll see their defenses starting to go up, especially as you get closer to it. And this creates like a space between you and the combat so that you can anticipate the combat. You are not just going from a fight into a cutscene and then back into a fight, where that doesn't actually give the game room to breathe. That cadence doesn't really work that way. You go from a fight into a cutscene, and you're not like, you have to engage with the cutscene and watch it, and it's actually not quite great at giving you that breathing room. What this does is you stop fighting completely. You can wander if you want, or you can go directly to the next like story progression mission. Either way, as you approach these things, it does a great job of building up tension and building up anticipation, especially like when you go up to one of the larger sort of objects on the horizon, like a giant tower that looks like a giant dungeon, and you begin to formulate these plans, and that's where the anticipation comes in. That's where the tension starts to build. You're like, is that plan going to work? And the world amplifies this. It reacts to you getting closer and closer by having enemies spot you and begin to like build up their defenses, or have a ship fly in and drop off more enemies for you to fight, the more powerful enemies usually. And it just really builds up the tension. And then when you decide to actually begin the fight, like at the crack of a whip, a game of Halo breaks out, and that just pops the tension, and then all of a sudden you're just Master Chief taking everyone out, using your tools, and that's where, on the other side, how they are expanding it once again. So that moment is fantastic when you begin combat and you just start blasting everyone away. And now you have, once again, you have like the grappling shot, which is like the real major upgrade here. You do have other options about a drop wall, which is basically like a drop shield. You have a thing like a sensor that could tell you where enemies are, especially if they're invisible, things like that. A burst, which I didn't use too much. Basically, you have a lot of options here. The grapple shot is definitely like the one I use the most. And one of the flaws with this game is it's pretty difficult to change between these things. You have to do 2 inputs on the D-pad. That is one of my major gripes with the game. Is I would sometimes want to go back to the drop wall and then back to the grapple shot, but in the middle of combat it would be dangerous to try to do something like that, because I'm not exactly sure if I'm gonna get there in time or if it's gonna be worth it. My thumb might fumble, and then even if I do, I might forget to go back to the grapple shot, and then when I go try to grapple out of danger, that might not work, and that could go really bad for me. Having Halo happen, just being Halo and having the combat, and then having that grapple shot, which even that alone is enough to expand what the combat can be. So once again, you have those synergies of like using a sword with the grapple, hook in close, take them out. But you also can upgrade your grapple shot like intensely to the point where you are now electrocuting the guy and he's getting stunned, and now you can come in and you can hit him with the butt of your gun and shoot him and try to move on to the next guy, and then it replenishes faster as you upgrade it, so you can pretty much shoot a guy, and then by the time you're done taking him out, it's going to be working again. You shoot to the next guy. You basically feel like you feel like if Hulk and Spider-Man had a baby, basically. Hulk, Punisher, and Spider-Man. The world itself feels very stripped back. Like they knew what would work, and they left that stuff in, and everything else they took out. That's not to say it feels sparse or bare bones. There is plenty to do, but you're going to do it, like those things usually take the forms of like a handful like of things that fit into certain kinds of buckets, certain kind of styles, like forward operating bases. Those are some of those are out there. You go take those over by killing a handful of guys, and then once you do that, you can drop drop vehicles there or get weapons. You could fast travel there, and then it also, like a Ubisoft game, opens up stuff on your map so you could see where other points of interest are. There's things that are just actually like named enclaves or named fortresses that you could take on, and these tend to have more objective based stuff as well as more powerful enemies, and they're bigger, and these are the kinds of things that respond to you as you get, especially as you like approach them. They're like, the demon is coming, we got to do something about it, and there's usually like waves of enemies that come in, that fly in and stuff like that. It's very dynamic, it feels very cool, but then there's like stuff all in between fobs and these named fortresses, and you'll stumble across most of them, and I just think that the progression works really well throughout all this stuff. Like, I liked doing these things intrinsically. I liked going to them and just doing them because it was fun to discover them, and then to take out the enemies and have the little thing on the map go from red to blue. All that stuff worked for me. But what I discovered as I was playing is I was earning Valor, which unlocked more like ship options in my fobs. And then if I were to go and like help like UNSC Marines who are pinned down by the enemies, that often would get me a named or like improved version of weapons that I could unlock at the fob. And then if I took out high value targets, which is a similar sort of thing, but it's not about like, oh, pin down, UNSC Marines. Instead, this is like a named soldier from the Banished is hiding out with all his dudes, and he's got a cool hammer or something, and you go take him out. Well, now you can unlock that hammer whenever you want in the fob. Doing that stuff, even if I wasn't using all those weapons, doing that stuff was very cool. And then when I started actually playing around with those weapons, turns out they're very powerful, very useful, and a lot of fun. Like I like the commando rifle, the one that's kind of got the powerful slow burst, not the but like the powerful automatic sort of burst. But if you get the upgraded version of that, it feels even more like powerful. It just takes everybody out. It just kind of shoot through shields and stuff like that. There's just some really cool things that they're doing where it's like it rewards you for doing the things you want to be doing anyhow, and then there's not a lot of filler in between. It really works. Now, as for getting you through to the story and the end of the game, if you just go to the big yellow markers on the map, you will get to the end of the game. You might miss some of the upgrades, but you'll get enough to just do your grapple shot, and again, that's kind of all you really need. This is where the game, the campaign, falters slightly for me. Not because these campaign missions are bad. Most of them are very good. The one big problem is once you go inside, usually these campaign missions will lead you inside these dungeons. And the dungeons begin to look pretty repetitive. The world itself doesn't have a lot of variety. When you're outside, you'll be in a forest. You'll be in like a forerunner, like steel structure, or near one, or you'll be in like some combination of both, where like the steel structure is sort of bursting through the forest, or the forest is burned down, or something like that. But they're focusing on what works, and who knows what will happen with that other stuff. But once you get inside, they begin to reuse rooms and stuff like that, and the lack of variety is much more pronounced in interior structures. Now, I feel like the game can get away with that a little bit, right? Because the whole idea of the Halo is it's this repeating structure that just goes around in a circle. Like once you're inside, like rooms look like rooms, right? So I get that. Like I think narratively they didn't actually try to like narratively justify it. No one ever said like, oh, they replicated rooms because it was easier on the machines when they were building this or whatever. But that's kind of like the headcanon I came up with, because it was really noticeable that these rooms look exactly alike, and I'm going into them almost one after the other, and that's pretty weird. Going into the last segment, where it's like the last mission for the story, that was as long as many other shooter campaigns. At least 3 hours, probably closer to 4 or 5 hours. Like that alone. And again, this is a lot of repeating structures, and that's where the game sort of isn't at its best, but it's still very good because it's fun Halo combat. You've learned a lot about what you can do as Master Chief, and just delivering on that stuff, delivering on like your learned prowess throughout this game at the end is satisfying in and of itself. And then you have the characters in the story, which for the most part worked for me. You could feel it's scaled back. They pulled back to like the bare bones stuff that they needed to make it work, which meant solid character interactions between Master Chief, the weapon, which is Baby Cortana, which will be her name to me forever, Baby Cortana, and then the pilot. And these three, they have their own strong perspectives about what they think they should be doing. They have conflicts among each other, and there's a lot of fights. That stuff it's not perfect, but it worked well enough for me that I cared about the characters, I cared about the outcome. And then on the other side of that, there is this mystery that Master Chief is obviously contending with about what really happened with Cortana, what's going to happen next, like what happened here, and why is Baby Cortana around if she was supposed to be deleted? Like there is a compelling mystery that's very easy to understand that kind of keeps you wanting to go next to the next story mission and be like, am I going to get a little bit more about what is happening here? In the end, I was satisfied. I think that it was kind of tied up maybe a little bit too neatly, but also I just wanted to go out and explore the world. That's what I'm here for. It's an awesome world to explore. It's an awesome world to get into combat in. And then at the end of the day, you could go over and play multiplayer and then have hundreds, thousands of hours of fun doing that. This is just an unbelievably well put together package. The things that like I feel like I should mention, there's complaints about the multiplayer. Everyone knows them now. They don't bother me all that much. I'm enjoying myself. What do you want me to say? When it comes to not having campaign co-op, I think that you should play this game the first time by yourself. You should be experiencing this world as a lone Master Chief trying to survive like going back into the fight because you can't help it, because you don't know any better. That's all you've ever known is fighting. So of course, like, you're just going to go back to the fight, even if you're completely by yourself. And you should feel that isolation, and especially when you're going through this gigantic Halo planet thing, that it's really effective. And I think that's the right way to play it the first time. That said, it seems like it's going to be a ton of fun with co-op multiplayer. Now, it's not going to be, it doesn't seem like it's Destiny. There's not going to be like you're not going to be running raids. You're not going to be running sort of missions over and over again. You're just going to go out and explore this world in a fun way. And then hopefully those physics interactions where you have grapple hooks, like you'll be able to do some weird stuff, I would imagine, if there's multiple people all doing that stuff at the same time. And that maybe some magic will happen there. Whatever. Big takeaway here is that this is just a solid, awesome game. It's great. And I believe that most people who try it are going to end up loving it. Now, I'm giving it 5 stars, and that's 5 out of 5. And that is when you consider it as an entire package. I do think that when it comes to the campaign, if you're only interested in the campaign, it is foundational, and it's strong, and it works, and it's fun right now. But I do think whatever they do next, whether that's a sequel, whether that's more content for this single player package, whatever they do next should and will be better, because more variety, expanding on the way the game works even further, introducing new enemies to interact with, and maybe new vehicles, stuff like that, and just new environments alone will go a long way. I'm just imagining if there was like a big snowy mountain or something that you can go up. Whatever, I don't know. That probably wouldn't change the gameplay too much, but just like having something different to look at would help. Either way, this is good. I mean, it's great. I would expect that whatever comes next and builds on this would probably be one of the best Halo games, period. I mean, this already kind of is. All right. I'm going to wrap it up right here. Thanks for watching. I'm thrilled with this game. I never would have expected this, other than I had a hunch, actually. I say I never would expect. I had a hunch that they were going to pull this off, and that's what the year delay was really about, is that they were this close. There was just some stuff getting in the way of greatness, and they didn't let good be the enemy of great, and they delayed the game, got stuff out of the way, just focused on what worked, and what works is fantastic. So yeah, that's Halo Infinite. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Until next time, take care of yourself. Have a good one, and goodbye.